What if I told you that the United States military is so massive, so advanced, and so globally connected that it doesn't just defend a nation, it shapes the entire world order? This isn't just about tanks, jets, or battleships. It's about a force so large it accounts for nearly half of all global military spending. Today we're diving deep into just how massive the U.S. military really is. And trust me, the numbers will blow your mind. Let's start with something simple, but staggering: manpower. The U.S. military has around 1.3 million active duty service members. That's more people in uniform than the entire populations of cities like Dallas or San Diego. Add roughly 800,000 in reserve and National Guard units, and you've got well over 2 million Americans who can be mobilized quickly. To put that in perspective, that's more people than the entire labor force of some small countries. Now, you might be thinking, sure, that's a lot of people, but countries like China and India have bigger armies, right? True. China leads the world with around 2 million active troops, and India follows with roughly 1.45 million. But here's the kicker. China and India each have populations more than 4 times the size of the United States. When you crunch the numbers, the U.S. actually fields a much higher ratio of troops per capita. In other words, while it may have fewer boots on the ground in absolute terms, the U.S. is more militarized relative to its population. And that's before we even start talking about technology, funding, and global reach, because that's where things really get wild. Let's talk dollars, because no discussion of America's military power is complete without money. The U.S. spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, in 2024 the U.S. spent around $900 billion on its military. That's roughly 40% of the entire world's defense budget, all from one country. To make that number feel real, imagine taking every military on Earth and giving 2/5 of all global defense spending to just one of them. That's the United States. Now, $900 billion is a mind-boggling amount, but it's actually only about 3.4% of U.S. GDP. In other words, the U.S. can pour nearly $1 trillion into defense every year and still spend proportionally less of its economy on the military than it did during past wars. Back in the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, that figure was close to 10% of GDP. During the Korean War, it hit almost 14%. The U.S. is richer now, and its economy has expanded so massively that even enormous defense budgets make up a smaller slice of the pie. Still, when you adjust for inflation, today's spending is higher than at any point since World War II. So where does all that money go? The U.S. Armed Forces are made up of 6 branches: the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and the youngest, the Space Force. Each has a distinct role, and together they create a global network of power projection unlike anything else on the planet. Let's start with the backbone, the U.S. Army. With around 450,000 active duty soldiers, the Army is built for land dominance, ground combat, logistics, and large-scale operations. The Army's equipment alone could fill a small nation's borders. It operates roughly 4,600 M1 Abrams tanks, an iconic symbol of American firepower. These tanks have proven their worth from the Gulf War through more recent conflicts and continue to receive upgrades in targeting, armor, and battlefield connectivity. Supporting the tanks are thousands of infantry fighting vehicles like the M2 and M3 Bradley, known for their blend of protection, firepower, and mobility. The Bradleys, along with Stryker armored vehicles and hundreds of thousands of Humvees, give the Army unmatched flexibility. Whether it's open desert warfare or urban combat, U.S. ground forces can adapt faster than most. But land power is only part of the story. The Air Force is where America truly projects reach. With about 320,000 active-duty airmen and over 5,000 aircraft, it's one of the largest and most advanced air forces on Earth. Around 1,500 of those aircraft are fighters, including the veteran F-16s and F-15s that have defined American air superiority for decades. Then you've got the stealth fighters, the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II, aircraft so advanced that many of their technical details remain classified. The F-22 is often considered the world's premier air superiority fighter, While the F-35 is designed for versatility, able to perform stealth reconnaissance, precision strikes, and close combat as needed, the U.S. has ordered more than 1,700 F-35s for itself and allied nations, spreading advanced capabilities across NATO and partner air forces. Combine that with an unmatched fleet of bombers, reconnaissance planes, drones, and transport aircraft, and you've got a force capable of striking anywhere on the planet within hours. Speaking of striking anywhere, the U.S. Navy is the ultimate tool for power projection. With over 330,000 active personnel and the largest fleet by tonnage in history, the Navy operates on a scale no other nation approaches. The centerpiece of this power is the aircraft carrier. The U.S. Navy has 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers in active service, more than any other country has combined. Each carrier is like a floating city, home to about 5,000 sailors and aircrew, equipped with up to 90 aircraft, and powered by nuclear reactors that allow it to operate for years between refuelings. The Navy's newest class, the Gerald R. Ford class, represents the cutting edge. Electromagnetic aircraft launch systems replace old steam catapults with magnetic rails, making takeoffs smoother and faster. The Ford class also requires fewer crew members and can generate roughly 30% more flight sorties than older carriers. With these ships, the U.S. can project air power to any coast, anytime. Under the waves are the submarines, the quiet but deadly component of naval power. The Navy operates about 64 submarines, including 14 Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines. These boats form the underwater leg of America's nuclear triad, providing a secure, survivable second strike capability. That deterrent, paired with surface fleets and strategic bombers, creates a level of nuclear stability few countries can match. No discussion of U.S. military power is complete without the Marine Corps. About 180,000 Marines form the nation's Rapid Response Strike Force, the first in, last out. Trained for amphibious operations, they can deploy from Navy ships straight onto hostile shores. But the Corps is evolving. Under its Force Design Modernization Plan, the Marines are trading heavy tanks for lighter, more mobile missile units capable of sinking ships and neutralizing threats from small islands or coastal positions, especially in contested areas like the South China Sea. The goal is fast, flexible forces that can deploy quickly and dominate littoral combat zones. Then there's the Coast Guard, often overlooked but crucial. With about 42,000 active duty members, the Coast Guard protects U.S. waters, intercepts drug trafficking, conducts search and rescue, and helps secure ports and critical infrastructure. And finally, the Space Force. Established in 2019, this branch is small, fewer than 10,000 active members, but its mission is enormous, protecting America's satellites, managing military space assets, and preserving superiority in orbit. Modern warfare depends on GPS, satellite communications, and space-based surveillance. Losing that advantage would cripple military operations, so the Space Force safeguards a domain that's become indispensable. Put all of this together, and you have a global presence unmatched in history. The U.S. maintains around 750 bases in over 80 countries. From Germany to Japan, Guam to Qatar, there's hardly a corner of the earth where American troops can't operate. That network allows rapid responses to conflicts, humanitarian crises, and natural disasters faster than any other nation. Yet here's something surprising. Despite all this capability, the U.S. military has been shrinking in personnel since the Cold War, not because of weakness, but because technology is replacing manpower. Drones, precision-guided munitions, AI-driven logistics, and autonomous vehicles are redefining warfare. The Pentagon is betting big on fewer soldiers and more smart machines, creating a leaner force that relies on tech over sheer numbers. Recruitment remains a real challenge. The military has struggled to meet enlistment targets in recent years. Fewer young Americans are signing up, citing physical standards, education choices, and civilian career opportunities. That hasn't stopped modernization. Instead, it's pushed the DoD to focus on quality over quantity, better training, improved retention, and greater investment in future systems like hypersonic missiles and directed energy weapons. The result is a force that may be smaller in body count, but far more capable in reach, speed, and lethality. All told, the U.S. military is more than a fighting force. It's a global institution. It protects American soil but also trade routes, alliances, and strategic interests around the world. Whether deterring aggression in Europe, preserving stability in the Pacific, or responding to disasters anywhere on Earth, the U.S. Armed Forces operate as a 24/7 guardian of global stability. So when people ask just how massive the U.S. military is, the real answer isn't just about numbers, it's about reach, technology, and influence. It's a system so vast that its decisions ripple across continents. The world runs, in part, on the backbone of American military logistics and presence. And whether you support that or not, it's a level of global impact no other force in human history has ever achieved.